This is a screencast on the topic known as no compromise. And no compromise is a carryover from the set of notes that we looked at in previous classes, continued compromise. And what we're going to look at here with no compromise is the fact that the compromise in the United States of America, as seen here on the left, it has ceased to exist. And we have a situation where the issue of slavery and sectionalism, which is the belief that others throughout the country are going to have a stronger identity or recognize themselves by sections of the country more than that of the nation. And this continued lack of compromise is going to continue to be an issue. And the rise of nationalism and manifest destiny as it relates to the painting seen down here is also going to give rise to more conflict in the United States due to the fact that we will have more land attained throughout our country. And every time we have more land equals the debate about the issue of slavery. So this is going to all lead to a lack of compromise. The other issue which will come about is the fact that Southerners will consider themselves to be treated unfairly in comparison to their Northern counterparts. Some of this can be seen here with the availability of transportation. If we look down here on the chart, you can see by year the miles of track constantly being increased in northern states. And this is due to the fact that we primarily have all of our industry there. But you can see from the highlighted part the difference in railroad types of track being laid from one year to the next. And it's really become very much a disparity. The other issue, as seen here, is the economy. The South feels as though they're being mistreated in terms of economic prosperity. And last and finally, the issue of politics. And the presidential election here of 1856, seen here, will give you notice that there is no Southern candidate of the three, from Buchanan to Fremont to Fillmore, all of which are Northern candidates from free states. Some additional causes to the abolition movement are also found in the fact that in the United States we've seen a heavy debate in the abolition movement by which the civil protest against it has found itself battling the radical movement. By radical, we mean extreme types of behaviors to rid our country of slavery, so extreme that we've even seen violent protest in the form of people such as John Brown. The other issue here is states' rights. And when we look at states' rights, we're starting to see the South become more protective of their right to have slavery. And by states' rights, this comes way back to the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions with James Madison and Jefferson when they battled in protest to the creation of the Alien Sedition Acts. And we saw Calhoun do the same with the nullification crisis, but now it's the South that fears slavery, and they're willing to use the states' rights doctrine to basically say if a law to end slavery is created, that they can declare it null and void and leave the country in and of itself, or secede. Last and finally, we have the presidential election of Abraham Lincoln, which is considered to be the last and final straw that the South can take. And the presidential election seen here of 1860 is one in which we have a hotly contested U.S. presidential run. Lincoln, who was already established in his Lincoln-Douglas debates that he will not allow for a country divided against itself from his famous House Divided speech. The Democratic Party, you'll notice, is split, and the Democratic Party is split amongst two candidates. We have a northern and a southern candidate. And when it's all said and done, as seen here in the percentage of votes, Lincoln will win. And when Lincoln wins, Southerners consider this to be the last and final straw. And we'll see that states begin to secede. The beginning of secessionitis. This is the spread of secession as seen here from one state to another like a virus in the United States. And one will notice here in the upper left that states begin to leave our country on December 20th. This is before Abraham Lincoln is even officially sworn in as the U.S. president. The state to leave is going to be South Carolina, and they will pass an ordinance of secession, but this is a ordinance to leave the country, and they will do so. And when South Carolina leaves, when they leave the country, they're going to be followed in February of 1861 by 6 other states, beginning with Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and then finally Texas. And you can see kind of the spread here. When this happens, this gentleman here, Jefferson Davis, will become the president of a new country, and that country will be called the Confederate States of America. And the capital will be down in Mississippi, his home state. Some Civil War nicknames that we'll be utilizing throughout this unit: the United States versus the Confederate States of America. North for the South, their uniform color is blue. The South, their uniform color will be a gray. Billy Yank or Yankee, Johnny Reb or Rebel, Union versus Confederate, all of which will be utilized throughout this time. The start of the war will begin at Fort Sumter, which is located in Charleston Harbor in South Carolina, on the 12th of April in 1861. The South is going to go to try and rid the North of occupying it, and they're going to be led by a military leader by the name of P.G.T. Beauregard, Pierre Gustin Toussaint Beauregard. And he is going to confront an individual whom he knows by the name of General Robert Anderson. And Robert Anderson is going to be occupying the fort for the North. Basically, it's going to become a standoff where Beauregard is going to force the North where they don't have supplies and try and starve these troops out. It's going to be sort of an odd battle in which Beauregard is actually going to meet with the individual Robert Anderson and tell him specifically when they're going to begin bombing, etc. And you'll see here kind of the look of it. When it's all said and done, the fort will be bombed. Robert Anderson will give up or surrender. Not one human life will be lost, but it does mark the beginning of the Civil War at Charleston Harbor at Fort Sumter. After the bombing at Fort Sumter, President Abraham Lincoln is going to offer command of the United States Army to a Virginian by the name of Robert E. Lee, seen here in the upper right. Robert E. Lee is going to decline this promotion to be the commander of the Army of the Potomac or of the North because he is unaware of what his home state of Virginia is going to do. He lives in Arlington, Virginia, which is today our national cemetery. That was the Lee Mansion. Ultimately, the secessionitis of the United States of America will continue, where we're going to see the states of Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, and Virginia will be so split on whether or not to join the South in the Civil War that it will actually form 2 states. One will be Virginia, and the northwestern portion of this state will become West Virginia, which will fight for the North in this war. The bottom line here is that the Confederate capital will move to Virginia when this happens, and Robert E. Lee will end up fighting for the South. As it will turn out, there will be no battles. No battles will occur for months, which is going to be a massive advantage for the South because they're going to be able to prepare for this war where they need the time.